Without an interpreter, chaos began, until the secretary's daughter stepped in to translate everything. Richard Thompson adjusted his tie for the 10th time in 5 minutes while glancing at the clock. The meeting that would decide the future of American textile was scheduled to start in 15 minutes, and his official interpreter had just called from the hospital reporting a kidney stone crisis. Emily Johnson balanced the coffee tray with trembling hands as she entered the conference room. At 22, she had agreed to substitute for her mother, Deborah, for just 1 day, but now she found herself in the midst of the most absolute chaos she had ever witnessed. "Mr. Malik Al-Fayez has arrived," informed Rebecca, the receptionist, her voice tense. The director ran his hands through his graying hair. 28 years leading the company his father had founded, and he had never felt so desperate. The Arabic investor represented the only chance to save the 150 jobs that depended on the factory. "And Brian, did you manage to find another interpreter?" Richard asked his assistant. "No one is available on such short notice, sir. And those who are charged $3,000 just for the meeting." Emily silently served the coffee, observing the tension filling the room. She knew every corner of that company, having grown up listening to her mother talk about daily challenges, financial struggles, and dreams of one day seeing her daughter work in a better place. The door opened and Malik Al-Fayez entered, accompanied by 2 advisors. He was an elegant man, around 45, with a piercing gaze and confident posture. He greeted Richard in heavily accented English, but soon began gesturing and speaking rapidly in Arabic with his companions. "Good morning, Mr. Malik. Welcome to American Textile," Richard said, trying to mask his nervousness. Malik replied in Arabic, looking around the room with an impatient expression. Richard forced a smile, but the sweat on his forehead betrayed his desperation. How could he explain there was no interpreter? How could he convince an international investor without proper communication? "I apologize, Mr. Malik, but we had an unexpected issue with our official interpreter. He had a medical emergency and—" Malik interrupted with a string of Arabic words, clearly irritated. He gestured while speaking to his advisors, and it was obvious he saw the situation as unprofessional. Emily stood still near the wall, holding the empty tray. Her heart raced when she perfectly understood what Malik had said. "This is disrespectful. We came here to meet serious people, not amateurs." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. For a moment, Emily hesitated. It would be madness to interfere in a meeting of such importance. She was just the secretary's daughter, there by chance, with no college degree or experience in international business. But seeing the desperation in Richard's eyes and knowing her mother's job, and so many others depended on this meeting, something stirred inside her. "Excuse me," she said softly, stepping forward. All eyes turned to her. Richard looked confused. Malik kept his impatient expression, and the other executives in the room stared at her in surprise. "Mr. Malik, I heard what you said in Arabic. You're right to feel disrespected, but I can explain the situation," Emily spoke, smoothly alternating between English and Arabic. The silence that followed was deafening. Malik tilted his head slightly, studying her with renewed interest. Richard stood gaping, unable to process what he had just witnessed. "Do you speak Arabic?" asked Malik, now in slow English. "Yes, sir. And also Mandarin if needed for the video conference with the investors from Shanghai," replied Emily, maintaining her professional demeanor despite her trembling hands. The reaction was immediate. Richard looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, while the other executives whispered among themselves. How was it possible that the daughter of Deborah, the secretary who earned minimum wage, knew such complex languages? Malik said something in Arabic to his aides, and Emily instantly translated, "Mr. Malik said he's impressed but wants to know your qualifications and professional experience." "How did you learn these languages?" Richard asked, still trying to make sense of the situation. Emily felt her face grow warm. The truth was embarrassing. For years she had taken free online classes, downloaded language apps, and even practiced by chatting with foreigners in online games, all while working part-time at a grocery store to help with household expenses. since her mother's salary barely covered the basics. I studied on my own. I've always had a knack for languages, she replied diplomatically. Malik addressed her directly in Arabic. Young lady, do you have the courage to take on such a big responsibility? This meeting could shape the future of many people. Emily responded in the same language. Sir, I understand the importance. I'll do my best to ensure everyone understands each other perfectly. Her fluency was impressive. Malik smiled for the first time since arriving, clearly pleased with the young woman's poise. Very well, she'll be our translator then, Malik declared in English. Richard was still processing the turn of events when his phone rang. It was the scheduled video call with the Chinese investors. The large screen in the room lit up, showing 3 men in formal attire speaking Mandarin. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Emily greeted them fluently in Mandarin, causing another wave of astonishment in the room. The meeting finally began, and Emily positioned herself to see all participants. Richard presented the company and its figures, while she translated simultaneously for Malik and the Chinese investors via video call. But as the presentation progressed, Emily began noticing discrepancies in the data. The production numbers Richard mentioned didn't match the information she'd seen on her mother's desk over the past months. Deborah always brought work home, and Emily often helped her organize reports. When Malik asked a specific question about last quarter's profit margin, Richard hesitated. Emily realized he was trying to mask significant losses. Mr. Malik is specifically asking about the actual profits from last quarter, accounting for all expenses and taxes, Emily translated faithfully. Richard shot her a warning glance, but Malik was attentive to every detail. The Arabic investor wasn't just fluent in Spanish, as Emily suspected, but also understood more English than he let on. Tell him we had an 8% profit, Richard whispered to Emily. But she had seen the real reports. Last quarter had recorded a 12% loss. Her conscience waged an internal battle. Lie to save the meeting, or stay honest and possibly ruin everything? Mr. Malik, the director would like to review these numbers more carefully before answering. Perhaps we can move on to other topics while he consults the exact figures, she said diplomatically. Malik nodded, but his sharp gaze didn't miss her hesitation. The Chinese investors asked several technical questions about production capacity and future contracts, and Emily translated with increasing precision, gaining confidence by the minute. During a technical break, while the Chinese consulted among themselves, Malik addressed Emily directly in Arabic. Young lady, can I trust that you're translating with complete honesty? Sir, my role is to ensure everyone understands each other perfectly. Honesty is essential in business dealings of this importance, she replied, maintaining steady eye contact. Richard observed the Arabic conversation with growing anxiety. He didn't understand a word, but the seriousness of Malik's expression unsettled him. What are you two discussing? He asked. Mr. Malik wanted to confirm some translation procedures, Emily answered evasively. When the video conference resumed, one of the Chinese investors asked a question that left everyone in the room silent. He wanted to know about the labor complaints the company had faced in the past year and how this might affect the brand's international reputation. Richard paled. That information shouldn't have been publicly available, much less reached the ears of foreign investors. Mr. Chen is asking about matters related to human resources, Emily translated carefully. Tell him we have no labor issues, Richard instructed firmly. But Emily knew that wasn't true. Her own mother had mentioned colleagues who had sued the company for delayed wages and lack of safety equipment. Deborah always defended Richard, saying he did his best with the resources available, but the facts were undeniable. Malik noticed Emily's hesitation again and intervened. Mr. Richard, perhaps it's best if we're transparent about all aspects of the business. Serious investors value honesty more than performances. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Emily felt torn between loyalty to the company where her mother had worked for 2 decades and the need to maintain her professional integrity. Mr. Chen, the director, acknowledges there have been some challenges related to labor matters in the past, but clarifies that measures are being taken to resolve all outstanding issues, Emily translated, finding a diplomatic middle ground. The Chinese conferred in Mandarin, and Emily overheard a concerning discussion. They were questioning the company's credibility and considering cancelling the investment due to the conflicting information. "Mr. Richard," Emily said, "they're expressing concerns about transparency and want a pause for reassessment." Before Richard could respond, Malik stood and said something in Arabic that made Emily widen her eyes. "What did he say?" Richard asked urgently. Emily looked at Malik, who wore a serious but not hostile expression. She realized she was being tested once again. "Mr. Malik said he'd like to speak with me privately for 5 minutes before we continue. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story." The tension in the room was palpable as Malik and Emily stepped into a small adjacent meeting room. Richard grew restless, pacing back and forth, while Malik's advisors remained silent and the Chinese waited on the video call. "Emily," Malik said, using her name for the first time, "you're too young to carry so much weight on your shoulders." "Mr. Malik, I understand the responsibility. It's not about that. I can see you're being pulled between truth and loyalty. That tells me a lot about your character." Malik walked to the window overlooking the factory floor. Down below, dozens of employees worked at the textile machines, unaware of the meeting that would determine their fates. "I'll ask you a direct question, and I want an honest answer. Is this company truly in a position to receive a $15 million investment?" Emily felt the weight of the moment. $15 million. It was an amount she could barely comprehend, but it represented salvation for all those workers. "So the company has potential, but it faces serious challenges that need to be addressed transparently." "What kind of challenges?" Emily took a deep breath. Her mother had always taught her that honesty was the most precious thing a person could have. Cash flow problems, some unresolved labor issues, and I believe some numbers in the presentation don't fully reflect the current reality. Malik nodded slowly, as if his suspicions had been confirmed. "And you, Emily, what's your position at the company?" "I don't work here, sir. I'm just filling in for my mother today, because she's sick." "How long has your mother worked here?" 20 years as a secretary. "And does she receive fair pay for 20 years of dedication?" The question caught Emily off guard. It was a wound that always hurt the Johnson family. Deborah earned minimum wage, worked overtime without extra pay, and often took work home. Even so, she always defended Richard, saying he did his best. "My mother, she's grateful to have the job," Emily replied diplomatically. "That doesn't answer my question." Emily lowered her eyes. Malik was right. Her mother deserved far more recognition and proper compensation for the work she did. "No, sir. She doesn't receive fair pay." Malik sat back down and studied Emily for a few seconds. "Do you have a degree in translation?" "No, sir. I learned languages on my own." "Why?" "I've always dreamed of working in international communication, but our financial situation never allowed for private college, and I didn't get into public university." "Have you tried working as a translator for other companies?" Emily felt a pang of pain remembering the humiliations she'd endured. "I tried a few times, but without a degree, it's very hard. Companies don't always give you a chance to show real competence." Malik asked a few more questions about her experience and language skills. Emily answered honestly about her self-taught learning process, her family's financial struggles, and her professional dreams. "Very well. Let's return to the meeting, and I want you to keep translating with complete honesty. Don't worry about the consequences. Can you trust me?" "Yes, sir." When they returned to the main room, Richard was waiting anxiously. The Chinese investors had waited patiently, but their growing impatience was visible. "Let's continue," Malik announced in English. The Chinese investors resumed their questions, and this time they were straight to the point. They wanted specific financial data from the last 3 years, detailed information about labor disputes, and guarantees about production capacity. Richard tried to sidestep the more delicate questions, but Emily faithfully translated each one. When he provided inaccurate information, she found diplomatic ways to maintain accuracy without directly confronting him. The situation grew more complicated when one of the Chinese mentioned an independent audit they had commissioned about the company. They already had detailed information about American Textile's true financial state. Richard tried to interrupt the translation, claiming there were misunderstandings, but Malik intervened. "Mr. Thompson, let the young woman do her job. Transparency benefits everyone." It was then that Emily realized she was being tested from all sides. The Chinese knew more than they let on. Malik understood more English than he showed, and Richard was trying to hide information the investors already knew. The revelation came when one of Malik's advisors whispered something in Arabic that Emily inadvertently translated. He said the independent audit confirmed losses of nearly $2 million last year. The silence that followed was deadly. Richard realized his strategy of withholding information had completely failed. "How do you know this?" he asked, anger and desperation mixing in his voice. Malik responded calmly, "Mr. Thompson, serious investors don't put $15 million into a company without prior investigation. We knew about the financial situation before we even arrived." "Then why did you come?" "Because we were testing something far more important than financial numbers. We were testing character, honesty, and human potential." Malik looked directly at Emily. "And we found what we were looking for." The meeting took a completely unexpected turn. The Chinese investors explained they weren't just interested in saving the company, but transforming it into an operations hub for Latin American markets. "For that, we need people with specific skills," Malik said, "and your translator demonstrated exactly what we're looking for." Richard tried to regain control. "Emily is she was here by chance. Your official team tried to deceive us this entire meeting," Malik interrupted, "while this young woman maintained exemplary professional integrity." One of the Chinese investors made a surprising proposal via video conference. They were willing to invest, but with specific conditions regarding management changes and hiring qualified new staff. "Mr. Chen suggests Miss Johnson be hired as International Communications Coordinator," Emily translated, surprised by the message's content. "That's ridiculous," Richard protested. "She has neither the experience nor the proper qualifications." Malik stood and walked to Emily. "In my culture, young lady, there's a saying, truth is like gold, its value doesn't depend on who holds it. Today you showed you possess something more valuable than diplomas." "Mr. Al-Fayez, I appreciate the confidence, but the Chinese investor's proposal is as follows. A $15 million investment, but with Emily Johnson as International Communications Coordinator, starting salary of $12,000 monthly, and her mother Deborah promoted to Administrative Supervisor with a salary of $6,000. The room fell completely silent. Emily felt like she was dreaming. Richard looked as if he'd been punched in the gut. "This is absurd," he muttered. "They're not qualified for these positions." "Mr. Thompson," Malik said firmly, "your secretary has worked 20 years earning minimum wage, doing work worth far more. And your daughter just conducted a complex international negotiation with more competence than many degreed professionals I've met." The Chinese agreed to the proposal, but added one condition. They wanted to implement a professional development program for the company's employees, starting with language training. "They suggest Miss Johnson develop and coordinate this program," she translated, still processing the magnitude of what was happening. Richard tried to negotiate. "Look, I can accept giving Emily a chance, but at a lower starting salary. And Deborah—" "There's no negotiation," Malik interrupted. "These are the conditions, or there's no investment." The moment of truth had arrived. Richard looked at the numbers on the table, thought of the 150 employees who'd lose their jobs if the company failed, and the mounting monthly debts. I need some time to think." "You have 5 minutes," said Malik, checking his watch. As Richard left the room to make some calls, Malik approached Emily. "Do you have the courage to take on this responsibility?" "Mr. Malik, I'm afraid, but I also really want to learn and contribute." "And your mother? What would she say about this change?" Emily thought of Deborah at home, recovering from the flu, unaware that their family's life was being transformed at that very moment. "My mother always taught me that opportunities should be seized when they come. She'd be happy, but also worried if I could live up to the trust placed in me." "Can I make a confession?" Malik said. I started the same way. My father was a street vendor in Casablanca. I learned Spanish and German by listening to tourists. My first opportunity came when I translated for a businessman who had lost his official translator. The revelation surprised Emily. Malik, with all his elegance and apparent success, had a journey similar to hers. "The difference is that someone believed in me," he continued, "and today I want to give you that same chance." Richard returned to the room with a defeated expression. "I accept the terms," he said simply. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, the next few minutes were a whirlwind of signatures, contract details, and explanations about schedules. Emily translated automatically, but her mind was elsewhere, trying to process the transformation that had just happened in her life. When the meeting officially ended and the Chinese closed the video conference, Malik asked to speak with Emily privately once more. "I have something important to tell you," he said, "and I need you to promise to keep it a secret until Monday." Emily nodded, intrigued. "That audit we mentioned, it revealed more than just financial issues. We discovered that several employees have exceptional potential but have been underutilized for years." "How so?" "Your mother, for example. She reorganized the company's entire filing system on her own, created spreadsheets that optimized processes and saved thousands of dollars, and informally trained 3 new employees, all without any official recognition." Emily smiled with pride. She always knew her mother was special, but she never imagined her contributions were so significant. There's more. The machine operator Raymond developed a technique that reduced material waste by 15%. The cleaning staff member, Mrs. Florence, identified maintenance issues that could have caused serious accidents. These are valuable people being wasted. "And Mr. Richard," Malik sighed. "Richard is a good man who's overwhelmed and lacks a modern management vision. He won't be fired, but he'll need to accept significant changes in how things are run. Can I ask why you're doing all this?" "Because I believe prosperous companies are made of fulfilled people, and because you remind me of myself 20 years ago." As she left the company, Emily walked as if floating. Her life had completely changed in one morning, but along with the excitement came a growing worry. Would she be able to meet their expectations? When she got home, she found Deborah in the kitchen, making tea and still showing signs of the flu. "How was work, dear? Did everything go all right?" Emily sat beside her mother, searching for the right words to explain what had happened. "Mum, I have something incredible to tell you, but you have to promise to stay calm." Deborah turned, concerned. "Did something bad happen?" "No, Mum. Something wonderful happened, but it was so surreal that I still can't fully believe it myself." Emily told the whole story, from the issue with the translator to the investor's final offers. Deborah listened with her eyes growing wider by the minute. "Honey, are you making this up to cheer me up because I'm sick?" "Mom, I swear it's true. Tomorrow, Mr. Malik will call to confirm all the details." Deborah started to cry. 20 years of dedication, sacrifices, quiet humiliations, and finally, the recognition she deserved was coming. "And what about you, Emily? Are you ready for so much responsibility?" "I'm scared, Mum, but I also know I can't waste this opportunity, and I'll do everything to honor the trust they've placed in me." Mother and daughter embraced, sharing tears of joy and relief. But Emily hadn't told her everything. There was one detail Malik had mentioned quickly at the end of the meeting, something about expanding operations to other countries in Latin America. That would mean travel, even greater responsibilities and challenges she could barely imagine. Over the weekend, Emily couldn't sleep well. She spent hours researching international trade, rereading notes she'd taken over the years, and mentally preparing for Monday. On Sunday evening, her phone rang. It was an international number. "Emily? This is Malik. I hope I'm not interrupting." "No, Mr. Malik. I was already awake. I wanted to speak with you before Monday. I have an additional proposal I didn't mention in the meeting." Emily's heart raced. "The Chinese investors were so impressed with your performance that they want to extend the partnership to other countries. Canada, Mexico, Brazil. Would you be interested in coordinating these expansions?" Mr. Malik, that would mean international travel, complex negotiations, responsibility over multi-million-dollar operations. I won't lie, it would be challenging even for experienced professionals. Emily took a deep breath. This was an opportunity beyond her wildest dreams. And would there be support? Training? Absolutely. You'd have direct mentorship from me and the Chinese partners, but I want honesty. Do you feel ready for something of this scale? Mr. Malik, I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I really want to try, and I promise to give it my all. That answer tells me everything. Monday, we'll start your intensive training. When Emily hung up, she realized her life hadn't just changed direction, it had completely shifted in scale. From the daughter of an unemployed secretary to an international operations coordinator in less than a week. On Monday, Emily arrived at the company at 7 in the morning, an hour earlier than usual. She wanted to be prepared for whatever the day might bring. She found Deborah already at her desk organizing documents with renewed energy. "Good morning, Supervisor," Emily teased. "Stop it, honey. I still can't believe all this is real." At exactly 9, Malik arrived with an elegant woman around 50. "Emily, this is Margaret Wilson, our HR consultant. She'll help with your onboarding and the language program development." Margaret greeted Emily with a warm smile. "Malik told me about Friday. I'm excited to work with you." "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. I hope to meet expectations." "Just call me Margaret. We're colleagues now." The first few weeks were intense. Emily split her time between international negotiation training, meetings about company restructuring, and developing the employee language program. Her first decision as coordinator was to offer free English and French classes for all interested employees during lunch breaks and after work. The answer was surprising. More than 50 people signed up. "Mrs. Florence, do you really want to learn English at 62? Asked Emily, surprised to see the cleaning staff member on the list. "Sweetheart, my granddaughter is studying to become an English teacher. I want to be able to help her with her studies." Stories like this multiplied. Raymond, the machine operator, wanted to learn French because he dreamed of visiting Canada. Rebecca, the receptionist, saw the classes as an opportunity for professional growth. But not everything was easy. Richard, though he had accepted the changes, showed subtle resistance to the innovations proposed by Emily. Small comments about her youth and inexperience created an atmosphere of constant tension. The situation exploded in the third week during a meeting about expanding to Canada. "Emily, are you sure you understand the legal complexities of international operations?" Richard questioned in front of the other executives. "Mr. Thompson, I'm studying all the necessary aspects and have the support of the specialized legal team that Mr. Malik hired. But you have no practical experience. Translating conversations is one thing. Making decisions that could cost millions is another." The remark was made with a condescending tone that irritated Emily, but she kept her composure. "You're right about my lack of experience. That's exactly why I rely on guidance from seasoned professionals like you." Malik, who had been silently observing the exchange, intervened. "Richard, we all started without experience someday. The question is, do we prefer people who study and prepare or people who think they know everything?" Malik's comment created an awkward silence in the room. Richard realized he had gone too far with his criticism and tried to soften it. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to discredit anyone. It's just, change always makes me anxious." After the meeting, Malik spoke privately with Emily. "How are you handling these pressures?" "It's challenging, but I understand his position. I imagine how hard it must be to see a family business go through so many transformations. Your maturity impresses me, but I want you to know you have our full support. Don't let comments undermine your confidence." The decisive moment came a month later, when the first Canadian representatives visited the factory. Emily would be responsible for all communication and negotiation. The meeting was scheduled to start at 10 in the morning. At 9:40, Emily received a call that changed everything. "Emily, it's Margaret. We have a serious problem. The Canadians arrived this morning but had complications at the hotel. They lost all the proposal documents due to an air conditioning issue that flooded their suite. Do they have digital copies? Their computer was damaged too. They're desperate because they need to return to Canada tonight, and without the documents, They can't close the deal. Emily felt a surge of panic but forced herself to stay calm. Margaret, can you reach their office in Chicago? I've already tried. It's a national holiday in Canada today. No one's working. What if we rebuild the proposal here? I have detailed notes from all the preparatory meetings. It's possible, but it would take 5 hours of intense work, and the meeting is in 20 minutes. Emily made a quick decision. I'll talk to them, explain the situation, and suggest we use the meeting time to reconstruct the documents together. That way they're part of the process and can ensure everything is correct. Are you sure? If something goes wrong? Margaret, sometimes you have to turn problems into opportunities. When the Canadian representatives arrived, Emily greeted them in fluent French, explaining the situation honestly and presenting her creative solution. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this is an unexpected situation, but I'd like to propose we turn this meeting into a collaborative working session. The Canadians, initially frustrated, were impressed by Emily's proactive approach. Instead of a formal presentation, they spent the morning rebuilding the proposal together, which ultimately resulted in a more detailed and personalized document than the original. Emily, this working method is far more efficient than traditional meetings, remarked Stephen Miller, the leader of the Canadian delegation. By the end of the morning, not only had they closed the original deal, but the Canadians also proposed expanding the partnership to include products that weren't part of the initial plan. We'd like you to come to Chicago next month to see our operations in person, Stephen said. Richard, who had observed part of the meeting, later admitted, Emily, I'll admit I was wrong about your abilities. What you did today, I couldn't have done it. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm realizing that experience isn't just about time on the job. It's also about adaptability. The trip to Chicago became a turning point in Emily's career. There, she not only secured new contracts, but also built a network that would open doors to other countries. During dinner with Canadian partners, Stephen Miller shared something unexpected. Emily, can I confess something? We looked into you before this partnership. What do you mean? Malik gave us your name as a reference, so we did some digging. We found out you'd applied for translation jobs at several companies and were always rejected for lacking a degree. Emily felt slightly embarrassed. We also learned one of those companies was our biggest competitor in the United States. They missed an incredible opportunity by turning you down. That's kind of you to say. It's not kindness, Emily. It's business strategy. We want to make sure you keep working with us, not them. The revelation gave Emily an important realization. Her past rejections had redirected her to something far greater than she could have imagined. Back in the United States, Emily found the company transformed. The language program was exceeding expectations, with employees applying their English and French skills directly to their roles. Mrs. Florence had become one of the most dedicated students and now helped train new employees in basic procedures for assisting foreign visitors. Dear, at 62, I never thought I'd say good morning to a foreigner and have them understand me, she said, beaming. Raymond had been promoted to production supervisor and used his French skills to coordinate directly with suppliers from Toronto. Emily, that boy who rejected you for a translation job, now I'm speaking French with the guys from Toronto. Life works in funny ways, doesn't it? But the company's growth brought new challenges. With operations in 3 countries, Emily had to travel constantly, manage multicultural teams, and make decisions affecting hundreds of jobs. The pressure peaked during a crisis in Mexico, when customs issues threatened to delay an important contract. Emily was in New York negotiating with local authorities when she received an urgent call from the United States. Emily, it's Deborah. I need to tell you something important. What happened, Mom? Mr. Thompson, he's not doing well. He fell ill during a meeting yesterday and was hospitalized. What's wrong? The doctors said it was stress. He's overwhelmed with all the changes and feels pressured to keep up with the pace of innovation. Emily felt partly responsible. In her eagerness to prove her competence, perhaps she had pushed changes too quickly. Mom, can I talk to him? He specifically asked to speak with you when possible. Emily called the hospital and spoke with Richard. Emily, I need to apologize. I've been resistant to changes because I feel threatened. In just a few months, you've achieved results I couldn't in years. Mr. Thompson, you built the foundation that made all this possible. Without your decades of dedication, there would be no company to transform. Thank you for saying that. I want you to know I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and when I recover, I'd like to learn from you about these new ways of doing business. The conversation deeply moved Emily. She realized leadership wasn't just about innovation, but also about inclusion and valuing diverse experiences. Back in the United States, Emily implemented management changes to better distribute responsibilities. She created an advisory board that included Richard, longtime employees like Deborah, and representatives from new international partners. The idea is for experience and innovation to work together, not against each other, she explained during the board's first meeting. The strategy worked. Richard contributed historical knowledge of the company and local relationships, while Emily led international expansions. Deborah became a crucial bridge between management and employees. 6 months after the first meeting with Malik, American Textile had tripled in size, operated in 5 countries, and became a benchmark for multicultural management. During a company celebration, Malik gave a speech that moved everyone present. When I arrived here, I was looking for a company to invest in. I found much more, people who transformed not just a business but a way of seeing commerce and human relationships. He turned specifically to Emily. You've proven that true competence doesn't come from degrees, but from character, dedication, and the courage to keep learning. Deborah, now a respected administrative supervisor, approached her daughter during the event. Honey, remember when you'd come home frustrated because companies wouldn't give you a chance? I do, Mom. Now I understand those doors closed because a much bigger one was waiting to open. Deborah's reflection perfectly captured Emily's journey. Every rejection had been a redirection, every obstacle an opportunity for growth. But the story still held one final surprise. A year later, Emily received an unexpected call. Emily Johnson, this is Michael Davis, HR Director at International Enterprises. Emily recognized the name. It was one of the companies that had rejected her application for a translator position 2 years earlier. We're impressed by your work at American Textile. We'd like to offer you a position as Director of International Operations with a salary of $40,000 monthly. The irony wasn't lost on Emily. Mr. Davis, I appreciate the offer, but I'm very happy and fulfilled where I am. We can improve the offer. $50,000 plus executive benefits. It's not about money, it's about purpose and loyalty. After hanging up, Emily smiled, thinking how life had come full circle. The company that hadn't recognized her potential was now trying to hire her for sums she'd never imagined earning. Malik, upon hearing about the rejected offer, made a proposal. Emily, how about we expand even further? I'm thinking of creating a consultancy specializing in international talent development, and I'd like you to be the lead partner. How so? Your story shows that there are many talented people being wasted due to lack of proper opportunities. We can change this on a larger scale. The proposal marked a new chapter in Emily Johnson's life. From an impromptu translator to a social entrepreneur, helping others discover and develop hidden potential. Malik, does this mean I can still work here at American Textile too? Of course. It would be a natural expansion of the work we've already been doing here. 2 years after the day she replaced her mother to serve coffee in a meeting, Emily found herself in her office planning professional development programs for young people from underprivileged communities. On the wall, a photo from her first meeting with Malik served as a constant reminder of how opportunities can arise in the most unexpected moments. Deborah, now 63, had become one of the company's most respected consultants, specializing in integrating older employees with new technologies. Mom, sometimes I still can't believe all of this happened, Emily said during lunch. Sweetheart, I always knew you were special. What I didn't know was that I was too. Deborah's words captured one of the most important lessons of their journey. Often people have extraordinary potential that only needs the right opportunity to be revealed. The company had become a model of inclusive management, where age, social background, or formal education didn't determine growth opportunities. Mrs. Florence, at 64, coordinated the program for welcoming international visitors. Raymond led a team of 20 people in projects for Latin America. The secret, Emily explained in her talks on people management, isn't finding perfect people, but creating environments where imperfect people can constantly improve. The philosophy had gained international attention. Universities in the United States invited Emily to speak, and companies from other countries wanted to implement similar methodologies. But she never forgot her roots. Every month, she visited public schools in the area, talking to young people about opportunities and the importance of never giving up on their dreams. You don't need expensive degrees to be valuable, she told the students. You need dedication, honesty, and the courage to seize opportunities when they come. During one of these talks, a 16-year-old girl raised her hand. "Emily, how did you know that meeting would change your life?" "The truth is, I didn't. I just tried to do my best with the situation in front of me. Sometimes big changes start with small right choices." The student's question made Emily reflect on her journey. She truly hadn't planned any of what happened. She simply met each challenge with honesty and her best effort. In the third year of their partnership, the company received an international award for innovation in people management. Emily was invited to accept the award in Geneva, representing not just American textile, but a new model of professional development. In her acceptance speech, she dedicated the award to all those who believed in unseen potential. This award represents millions of people around the world whose talents are waiting for the right opportunity to shine. Our job is to create those opportunities. After the ceremony, Malik greeted her with pride. "Emily, you've become so much more than I imagined that first day." "Malik, can I confess something? That day when you called me aside to talk, I thought I was going to be fired before I even started. And I thought I'd found a good translator. I never imagined I'd found a future leader." The conversation brought back memories of the defining moments in their journey. From the initial insecurities to international successes, each step had built not just a career, but a life mission. The end of the story. And what about you, dear listener? What did you think of this journey of overcoming? Did Emily make the right choices by taking such big risks? Tell us in the comments which part of the story moved you the most, and if you know someone who went through a similar situation. Your opinion is very important to us.